All right, so I think we are recording. We are waiting on Hannah to jump in, but we've been waiting for a little over 15 minutes. So, and we've tried calling and texting, and we hope she joins here soon. But we're going to get started. Olivia and I, sorry, I'm kind of taking over, Olivia, and you're the lead.
No, you're good. I was like, all right,
Mhm.
just go for it.
You're lead on this last one. All right, go ahead and start.
All right. What did you teach in math this week, or really since the last time we've met?
Okay, since the last time we met, we were doing measurement. I think the last time we talked, I was talking about teaching measurement, and we wrapped that up. And all those like things finally worked. Like I would say, the majority when I look at the grades, the kids did really well. And in previous
Mhm.
years, when I've taught measurement, it is such a hard topic for them. But it really clicked with this group. I had a couple that were still stuck, but I would say with a conversion chart, it was hard on the test when they did take it because we had to have. So we had done um, place value. And then we had done powers of 10 and kind of dividing and multiplying by powers of 10. Then we related that into metric. And then we went for the break on fall break and came back and started doing customary. And then when they took the test, it had both on it, the metric and customary.
Mhm.
And so that was a little bit tricky for them to navigate. I mean, we reviewed both because I was like, oh gosh, it's been a while since they've done metric and we've only been doing customary and both are on the test. Um, but that was probably the only thing that made it tricky. Like, I feel like everyone understood customary because it was freshest in their heads. And I've got some kids that have like slower processing, and ones that just need more practice, and we had to move on to the next unit. But I would say overall, I think they did better on measurement this year than previous years I taught it. So I felt really good about that. And then we went into multi-digit multiplication, and it was good. The kids didn't necessarily want to do all the strategies. They wanted to stick with the one. That's what I've noticed is tricky about fifth grade, is that it is an extension of what they do in fourth grade math, and they already kind of have their feet wet in what strategy they like. So, like, if they already come to you really liking area model, then getting them to do
Yeah.
partial product or standard algorithm is like it. So it just kind of depends. I don't love that fourth grade teachers, when they teach standard algorithm, because I'm pretty sure in the standards you have to wait till fifth grade to teach standard algorithm, and I taught fourth for a long time, and so I know it's so tempting to go ahead and teach them standard algorithm because it's just faster and easier, and a lot of kids like it clicks for them. But then when you're trying to, they're required to see it in several different ways. Um, that was kind of tricky to kind of back it up and going, we're going to try this strategy for a while, and you're going to get comfortable with that, and then we're going to try area, we're going to try, and then we're going to do standard, and then on the test there'll be some questions I give you where you can choose the one you want, but I'm going to give you some questions where you are required to use that strategy because the milestones might give it to you that way. um, but they did really well on that test as well. I would say overall, like I've got my grade book up here, I would said overall, that unit went really well, um, as well. Yeah, like multiplication test. If anyone failed it, they're my already special needs or in the RTI process, MTSS kids. Um, and then this week and last week we've been doing long division, and we'll take a long division test before we leave for Thanksgiving break. So that's kind of everything since we last talked that I've been doing. I know you go a little faster than I do. So
Yeah.
what have you been
Have
doing?
you ever taught short division?
I don't know. What is it?
I don't know. One of my students would always be like, I want to do short division. And somebody showed me it the other day, and it was like you didn't have to bring down as much.
Mhm.
So instead, it was you would have it, and you would go place by place value, and whatever you'd have left over, you would just mark it out and put it under.
Oh, they call that the box method. Does it have 3
Oh,
boxes?
yes.
And you take out a chunk, you put that amount at the top, and then you
Mhm.
subtract, and then you move it to the next box, and you take out
Yes.
that chunk. It's r They call that box method, or it's not area method. I did try teaching them area method with long division, which it l they're used to seeing it as multiplication, so where you have place value blocks, where you have like a rod, like a 10 rod, and then like a couple units across the top, and then you have
Yeah.
the 10 rod and a couple units down the side, and then it fills in with like, a 10 and a 10 make a 100 block.
Mhm.
And I can see how it's multiplication and can be used, but they had to be able to see it how it relates to division, and that was kinda hard for mine. Um, Once they understood, so, like, if it's already made for you, the picture, then to use it for division, you take the dividend, the number under the house. Your total to start with is the already like the whole thing made. Your 100,
Okay.
your rods, all your ones in the corner here. And then your divisor, your number of groups is one of the sides, whether that's the top or across the top or across the side. And then your answer, your quotient is the other side. So like I don't know. I didn't do too much with it, but it's required in the standards that we do it. I've never heard that referred to as short division, but I know exactly what you're talking about now that you said it. But to me, that's really similar to partial quotient, where you're taking out groups, you're
Yes.
subtracting, and you're seeing what else you can take out, and then tens of the number, and then ones of the number. It's just with box, you're going across the top, and partial quotient, you're going down the side.
Yeah.
Mm. So
Right.
you've done multiplication and division already this year
Yes,
too.
we did that in August, but since we met, we've done addition and subtraction with fractions, and
Right.
that was a test. And they did okay on it. The ones that messed up were like some added instead of subtracting. Like
Mm,
they were just small mistakes, or it was a word problem. And it was like a team shared or there's 15 players on a team and they shared 6 pizzas. A lot of them divided the people into 6 groups instead of a 6 pieces of pizza
mm.
portion out, and we're like, "You cannot cut up people like that."
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, we haven't
the last
gotten
2 weeks
uh-oh, Hannah's sick. Oh, no. Okay, no worries.
oh,
I'm just letting Dr. Chang know if when she
yes.
watches this um, that Hannah's not feeling well this morning, so we're gonna keep going without her.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to fractions yet. I'm gonna start doing that after Thanksgiving break for all of December and then into January because there's a lot of fraction operations this 5th grade.
Yes. Yeah, we're just doing we did multiplication for 2 weeks, and then we're doing division now. But
Mm,
we also added our customary unit into the fractions. So, I taught them the big to small,
mhm,
but what it was wanting them to do is, like, multiply whenever you're going, big to small, you
mhm,
multiply by the whole number, and
mhm,
then it was showing you how you could divide by a or multiply by a fraction to get the smaller number instead of dividing.
okay,
And the way the book showed it, it was more confusing than like just saying, okay, small to big, you multiply,
mhm,
big to small, you divide. But I did show them the hand motions.
mhm.
And one of the teachers, we were in the lunchroom eating lunch, and they were like, yeah, I do this thing where it's like big to small, you multiply. And they were like, have you ever heard of that, Olivia? I said, oh, yeah, I have. So I gave you credit. Um, but we can start with lesson 6 or meeting 6
Uh,
discussion questions if you're good.
so I guess, yeah,
Um,
we kinda talked through some struggles and stuff. I guess my biggest struggles were just because there's so many different Allie. So many different strategies, and then kids already have some things in their head, like how they're used to doing it was kind of the struggle. I would say most of my kids at this point, "Oh, ask your daddy. I'm doing a Zoom." She came to look at me to get help from something. I'm like, "Girl, not the time. Ask your other parent." Um, did yours conceptually understand fractions get so confusing. I'm a little nervous to go into it because some of my kids have, like, fraction gaps from previous years. But since I've taught 3rd and 4th grade, hopefully I can kind of break it down to what they need to know that builds up. But multiplying by a fraction, the number gets isn't it gets smaller? So
yes.
7 wholes times a half,
Yes, the
it
number
ends
would
up
get
being it
smaller.
ends up being it's like the opposite of what you'd think and the same thing. But when you make it, like, relatable, like, you're gonna have more pieces. If I take something and I'm dividing by a fraction, then I end up with more pieces because 'cause I'm trying to figure out how many fraction pieces are within the whole. I mean, I'm gonna have to use a lot of visuals and
Yes, that's what all of ours we have to draw pictures for them.
mhm,
And
that's
even with division, they don't want us to teach them keep, change, flip.
mhm,
They want them to find it on their own,
right.
which I have been kinda, like, mentioning, like, "You can do this," but also drawing so many pictures
So,
every day.
yeah, pictures are super, super useful. I don't have we got a grant, for us to order a bunch of math manipulatives. The district provided, I don't know if or the state provided the grant or something. And so we sat down, but I haven't gotten any of my manipulatives yet. And I don't have anything fraction related. And I feel like that is so helpful, that hands-on. Do you guys have, or did you use any manipulatives, or does your program like give you any hands-on things? So, I mean, like,
Not really often. There's a few that I will be like, "Okay, get your unit or Unifix cubes out or your unit
mhm,
cubes," and
mhm.
I've done it, like, twice, but, um, nothing that it doesn't give you anything, like, it's just things that we've had.
Yeah, because that's a big thing that I want to. It talks about like what you want to improve in is the use of manipulatives, but they haven't come in yet. Even though I don't, I have to ask the principal. Like, I guess it's a process because it's a grant through the state and everything. But next year I'll be set up, like being able to have everything I need, um,
Yes.
manipulative wise. When we did long division, I did teach it to them place value with like place value blocks.
Mhm.
So let them actually draw the number of groups and then physically break up, okay, can I take 100 out of each? Can I take several hundreds? And I use my physical like base 10 blocks, the hundreds,
Yeah.
the rods, the ones. And then when they ran out enough of it, oh, they would keep going into, and then whatever's left of the remainder. But they'd have to like, okay, can I do any more tens? No. So let's regroup that into one. So they did really well with the conceptual understanding of long division. I'm just more nervous coming up with fractions without having manipulatives, but I think I'll have to, like you did, use a lot of drawings
Yes.
because you want to teach them the tricks, but if they don't have any conceptual understanding of what they're doing or why the number's larger, gets larger or smaller, because fractions are so backwards.
Yes.
Um, and then what was something else I was going to say? Had to do with, oh, how did yours do with because part of like adding and subtracting fractions, you had to find common denominators, right?
Yes. They did well. They did better than I thought they would, but I made them, like, write out their skip counts. I'd be like, "Okay, write
Mhm.
out your skip counts of 3, write out your skip counts of 4, and then go back and circle it," because
Circle
that's when we did the math
movement.
movement,
Yeah.
and then ever since then, I was like, "You still have to write them out."
Yeah.
Um,
And then a lot of mine, I realized because that's a skill they learn in they first learn equivalent fractions in 3rd grade, and they do a lot more with it in 4th grade. But a lot of mine, like once they find the common denominator, did they know what each fraction needed to be multiplied by to make them then have a common denominator? Like mine can get confused with that. Like they can find the right one, but then they don't seem to know exactly what to multiply each one by so that they can get that common denominator.
some of them were confused about that, and then some of mine, especially, like, the EI kids that got pulled out, she taught them the butterfly, I think that's what it's called, where
Mhm,
you multiply by the opposite denominator,
mhm,
and some of mine like just doing that, and they'd be like, "Why are we getting different answers?" And I'm like, "You tell me, why do you think you're getting
mhm.
different answers?" So we had to have that conversation too, like, they're all equivalent fractions. One's just more simplified than the other.
Yeah. Did you relate it when you make an equivalent fraction that why you multiply both the numerator and denominator by the same number?
Yes.
How it relates to like one whole is the same thing as like
Mhm.
multiplying by the identity property. Um, that makes
My
it
Yeah,
conceptually like make more sense. I haven't gotten to that yet. I just know that's what's coming. So I
yeah.
kind of like know what struggles I've had in previous years on it. So I was just
Mhm.
curious how yours did.
Yeah. My
Uh,
mentor teacher used it as, like, saying she was like, "Okay, like, I'm your teacher here, but just because when I leave here, I'm still your teacher, but I'm also a mom." And,
mhm.
like, she's like, "I'm not changing my identity, I'm just changing the way I look."
Oh, I like that. So it's the same fraction. It just looks different.
Yes.
You're the
And I
same.
was like, "Oh, I like that."
I do
And
like.
then she was like, or you could say, like, a football player is a football player, but then when he puts his helmet on, he looks different, but it's still the same person.
Gotcha. No, yeah, you're right. I like that. I never used that. And that kind of goes into the ELL stuff that we're going to talk about, like
Yes.
making it relatable to something they understand. So
Right.
it doesn't seem so abstract. I'm trying to do better about, and I've been trying to find since this year we don't really have a math curriculum. We're just using the Georgia state units. Some of those lessons take the whole like class period that I have, and then I have to move into science. Sometimes I cut into science class because I can, even though science is a tested subject in 5th grade, I feel like math is really important, and my kids are a lot lower in math this year. One of my homeroom is really low, and then I would say the second period, like I've had to adapt my lessons from one class to the next, which has
Yes.
been kind of fun for me because we're going to talk about differentiation and stuff. But a big area that I've been trying to improve on is just being able to do better about pulling small groups. Teach the whole lesson for everybody, and then be able to work with those kids who have those gaps, and help them get the remediation they need. And I don't have a lot that need like for differentiation academic challenging kind of things. I think I have in my homeroom class only like 3 kids on grade level. Um, and I don't even think I have any distinguished learners from milestone scores. So I'm trying to find some differentiation in like questioning techniques and different things to get those kids to not be bored to death. But I feel like they're just keeping up just fine, and I am trying to find ways when they are ready to give them something a little bit more challenging. But majority of the kids need remediation.
Yes.
And so trying to find some time to make small groups work the best way I can. Like all next week, since we've done all the Georgia DOE units on long division, and then I've taught them all the different strategies at this point. All next week before we take the test on long division, I have them doing centers. So that I can pull small groups, and then they've got other activities and things that are kind of Thanksgiving based, but can practice. So that I'm just trying to kind of look at everything and find ways that I don't feel like I'm rushing through. And I know pacing wise, because I'm following the Georgia DOE, what they suggest is that we'll have covered everything in time for milestones and have a little bit of time to review. But it does feel like I'm going kind of slow, like when you've kind of heard how far you've gotten in the different standards, but I think it'll benefit them in the long run.
Yes.
It's
And
good.
like at the end of the year, we have like 2 weeks to review everything.
Good.
So, and I try to, one of the other teachers told me to do this. She was like, give them like problems for warm up from like the first unit. So
Mm-hmm.
you still introduce, it's like the spiral review that
Yeah.
you did last year.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
there's
I'm not
like,
doing it this year.
okay.
Yeah, that took so much time. And
Yeah.
then it previewed some concepts. I feel like there was some benefit to it. I may use it near the end once we've covered most things, just to, like you said, to kind
Mhm.
of spiral back. Do y'all do homework?
We do.
Okay. Does your program provide it, or do you make
It
it?
does.
Okay, that's nice. Does it spiral back, or does it more focus on just them practicing what you're currently doing?
And more is what we're currently doing, but then on the back page, it'll be like a remember. So
Okay.
it will kind of go back.
Okay.
Like we taught expressions during multiplication division. So that was our first test or second test, whatever.
Mhm.
And that was one of the homework problems this week.
Okay. 'Cause
My problem,
I am doing homework this year. I didn't do it the last 2 years. I just thought about it and I was like, they could do 5 questions a night. I really think,
right?
and for some kids that are clueless, it doesn't benefit them because their parents don't know how to help them and they're stuck.
Yes,
I get frustrated, and some just hone it in and put like random answers down. And I'm like, no, you need to come spend some time with me on recess on Friday. I'm not gonna make you go walk laps, but like sit down and do some of the problems with me, not all of them, but I want you to see where you're messing. Like, why were you so confused on the homework, or were you being lazy? I've had some kids that are smart and can do it, but they just put their thing, put an answer in, or they don't show the work. And I'm like, do you use a calculator? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, that doesn't help you at all. So I started making them kind of show their work on paper and attach it to it. But it's just 5 questions a night, and I make it on just like Google Docs. And that way I can do what we're currently doing and then spiral in questions that I'd like. It's extra time for me to make, but maybe only takes about 10 minutes a week for me to sit down and kind of make the coming week's homework and whatnot. I think it will benefit the kids too, that they're getting a little bit of extra practice at home, and then I'm able to kind of like make sure they remember the other things. Like I'm still putting measurement related things into their homework, even though we've been doing multi-digit multiplication and long division for a while. Um, and then yeah. All right. Well, I think we've discussed pretty good about everything that's been going on since we last
yes.
talked. if you want to lead into the
So the first question is, what is differentiation in the mathematics classroom? I feel like that's a pretty easy. I feel like you could answer it for any class. Like being able to hit those different groups, like you were saying, like
Mhm.
if you had distinguished learners, being able to change your lessons up for them so it's not like they're bored. Um, and the reading talks about the zone of proximal development a lot, and it talks
Right.
about how like there's this certain spot where kids need to be where they can do it on their own and they're struggling a little bit, but it's not too hard of a
Mhm.
struggle.
Mhm.
Um,
And I related a lot to the text. I was like, differentiation is actually it's harder in a math classroom. I feel
yes.
like it's more straightforward in a reading class because you can just look at their Lexile and you can choose your, passage based on that, or they phonics understanding and they can pull them to do phonics lessons. If it's a fluency thing, you pull them to do fluency. I feel like it's more
Mhm.
concrete in an ELA classroom, and differentiation in math. But like once I listened to her, once I read about it, some of the strategies, and then listened to Dr. Chang's way of saying it, I was like, oh, it's not always small groups. Like there's other
Yeah.
things you can do with just your questioning techniques and choice boards. And I was like, oh, okay. And made me feel like because I'm trying to make all this time for small groups. I'm like, oh, there are things I can do, um, just in a whole lesson, and it still adapts it, to so that it helps the different level kids. Um,
Yes.
I
And I
wrote,
was oh, go ahead.
the little note I made was, differentiation in the mathematics classroom is adapting lessons for learning style, cognitive ability, readiness, and or interest. It's kind of leveling the playing field by providing accommodations to allow all kids to be successful in class. Um, And I made, like, a note that, like, some of my sped students need a multiplication chart to keep up with the 5th grade material. Like, since they don't have those memorized, I'm not trying to see if they know their multiplication facts at this point. That was a skill they needed to start learning in 3rd and 4th grade and have them fluently there. So if they don't have those yet, we still practice. They have, like, a fluency game they do a couple days a week because my goal is that they all are 100% fluent before I send them to middle school because it's just gonna make their life easier. But when we're doing multi-digit multiplication or long division, they need to know those facts pretty readily available. So I let them use a chart so they don't get so focused on all that cognitive ability and pulling that fact out of their head, or even using a strategy to figure out, but just use the chart so that they don't get lost in the steps of something that's a little bit more in depth. Um, and I think that helps a lot. Um, This year, like, in previous years, I've had gifted kids in the classroom. The way they do it at my school is all the gifted kids are in one class. Um, so when I was in Gainesville City, you would have a very, heterogeneous group. So, like, no one had all the sped kids. Like I do now,
Mhm.
I have all the sped kids, so I have the push in with a co-teacher. So I would have very much a mixed ability classroom when I was in Gainesville City. So I'd have every 4th grade teacher would have 2 or 3, depending on how many were in the grade level sped kids, some 2 or just a couple RTI kids, kids that are just a little bit below grade level, on grade level, and then everyone had a couple of gifted kids. So you had those all within the classroom, and then the gifted kids one day a week completely left the room to go to the gifted teacher to get what they needed for that. But when it was like that, it was almost easier to put them into groups to do those things. So I could put all my gifted kids and my maybe high achievers that weren't labeled gifted, but could kind of keep up with the gifted kids. I'd have them do when we did like a intervention kind of period of time, or we called it math groups period of time, where those kids were given like a challenging project, very much project-based learning that or like logic, but like stuff that was just difficult
Yes.
to challenge them, but they'd work together, and then they get frustrated sometimes because 'cause they'd wanna come get help from me, and I'm like, "No, between all y'all's brains, you can take on this challenge and do it." I would check in with them, but it would allow them to do that, and then I'd have my on grade level kids doing something that we're currently learning independently or in game style or something like that, and then I'd work with my remediation kids, and then I could switch groups. I could check in on the gifted or the high kids on how the project was coming. But I didn't have to meet with them necessarily every day, or if I did, it was a shorter amount of time than my kids that really needed like back it way down. Um, it's a little harder for me to do that now because I'm more was it homogenous? Like I have the sped
Mhm.
kids or all the low kids, and like I said, I maybe have 3 or 4 on grade level kids. So when I'm trying to put them into groups, I more have like two groups that really need remediation and need to be
Yes.
pulled into small group, and one that can do things independently. So then I come across the struggle of, while I'm working with the one really low group, I still have one really low group that's supposed to be working independently, and they just can't.
Right.
So then I have to adapt, like, what they're doing. Is there a different skill from a previous grade level, or like a gap in their understanding that they could work toward that? Or could they just get on the program on their computer that helps them with their multiplication fluency? Like something that isn't going to challenge them so much where they get frustrated and give up and sit there and do nothing and start talking to their friends. So that they can wait for their turn to be with me to really get the remediation they need on the concept. So because I have, like so many of them that are that way, it just makes it a little trickier for me to put them into groups the way I used to. But I also don't want to do remediation as a whole class, like a whole class lesson, because then I've got, like I said, maybe 4 that don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could put them off to do their own project, but then as I'm doing a whole group lesson, I don't know, it just gets it where they can't focus, and there's not enough space in one classroom sometimes to like break it all up into things. I did realize when I was starting to pull small groups this week on long division that so many of my kids, being lower kids, cannot subtract with regrouping correctly. And if you can't subtract with regrouping quite right, then long division is extremely hard.
Yes.
Like they understand the step. Did you see that with any of yours?
I did. Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, now I got to pull you in a small group to fill the gap in on how, and then once I pulled them and reminded them how to do regrouping and subtraction, they were like, oh yeah, I remember. But like, it's like they hadn't mastered it. So I was like, well, if you don't get that fixed, then you're going to continue to make mistakes in your long division.
Yes. I saw that with all of our fractions when we were adding and subtracting them. Everything in Eureka is horizontal, so it'll be like whatever minus whatever.
Mhm.
And they were struggling with when they would have to regroup. And so then I started getting them to stack it. And I was like, stack it because it's easier to see. So now when you have your fraction, you have to borrow. You can mark it out and you're adding that fraction back. And they were like, oh, that makes more sense. Because like whenever it was horizontally, they were like, I don't know what we're doing.
Mm. Yeah, it makes sense.
I'm going to be honest, I'm not the best at differentiating. Like I'll get through my lesson and I'll be like, okay, if you need help, come back to the back table.
Yeah.
But I know that there are some that probably need help that don't come back there. And then there's some back there that I'm like, you're just like hanging around because you want the answer.
Right. Yeah, that's a slippery slope. Yeah. So
Yes.
be careful with that, because yes, there are going to some that think they've got it.
Right.
And don't come to you to get the help. And then you got some that I've got it, but they just love to have your moral support is what I call it. Of you being close by.
Right.
You're like, you're getting it right. You're getting it right. So yeah, I've kind of, sometimes I'll do it that way. If it's just like maybe 10 minutes left in class and they've got what, like the last bit is the ticket out the door, or like show you're learning independently, or whatnot. Sometimes differentiation, I mean, can look so different in a math class. Well, I'm kind of glad she put this, because really, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, yes, everyone learns about differentiation in their undergrad. I mean, it's something you have to do. But there's so many different ways to do it. And sometimes differentiation can just be because they're all doing it independently, and you're literally just walking around the room watching how they're doing it independently, and just stopping in to check on a kid and going, oh, I see where you're doing this. Are you or like giving them some kind of little prompt. So that's something to try too, because yeah, sometimes if you want to go sit down at your table and like, who needs help, but then it I don't know if it always benefits all kids.
Yes.
I'm trying to get better at, I feel like differentiation is something we can just like continue to get better at. And a lot of, I think, like Dr. Chang said, a lot of y'all are brand new to teaching, and it's still something me at year 12, I'm trying to get better at. Like, how can I really use my time as best to help these kids? Cause they come to you sometimes with so many gaps. But like looking into your, whatever universal screener you guys, or data of some kind, and find some of those gaps. And, even if it honestly has nothing to do with what you're currently learning, but saying, okay, I'm going to pull a group today while y'all are working independently on subtraction with regrouping, or, if there was just another gap that you see in data. But yeah, that's a big thing of it just takes time to get better at it. It
Yes.
doesn't always have to, like she said, be in small groups. Sometimes it's your questioning strategies. Um, and it's, to me, if you don't have a lot of time to pull a small group, just that individual checking in on kids,
Yes.
and just watching them work. They don't even have to tell you, I need help or I'm stuck. They may think they've totally got it, and you're like, you are not quite
Yeah.
doing it. You're just doing a quick check-in on them and then continue to walk to the next kid and just kind of, assessing in that way with observations. And then it doesn't have to be this big to do. 'Cause sometimes deploying small groups can get tricky because some kids don't work well independently or with
Mhm.
others because they just either have attention difficulties or behavior issues, or if they're on a computer, they don't always get on what they're supposed to and stay on what they're supposed to. Um, and like I had some kids work on an IXL skill. Well, I pulled kids to work on things and they just weren't getting the IXL skill and they were getting frustrated. And I'm like, well, now I'm just like wasting their time because, like you said, it has to be within their approximate, zone of development. Um, so I mean, it's tricky. It's
Mhm.
tricky to get it just right. But the fact we're aware of it, we know what makes it difficult. I liked that it kind of talked about some other strategies that don't require you to necessarily have to pull small groups to give the kids to get what they need.
Yes.
Um, I mean, all we can do is be aware that it's something we need to get better at and keep finding ways to make it work.
We really kinda answered all of those questions, like, do you experience differentiation mathematics when you're teaching in the classroom?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I would say, yeah, I definitely have probably more experience than some of y'all, and I've tried it so many different ways. I mean, I guess I've kinda talked about quite different ways.
Yeah.
Um,
Our problem sets, so we do a lesson and they get to do their problem sets, they're designed to go from easy to difficult.
mm,
So, that has been beneficial because I'm like, "Okay, I know that this class can handle some of the harder ones by
mhm.
themselves versus this class." Or I let them work through these, and then if they get finished and I check their work, and I'll be like, "Alright, try this last word problem that's taking the skill and applying it."
Are those question sets in like, how do you give it to the kids? Is it in their workbooks? Is it
Yeah, they're in their workbooks.
so there's, like, a way for them they don't have to do all of them, you just kinda let them know, "I want you working on
Mhm.
these, you working on."
I'll be like, "Alright, today we're gonna do problems like 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9," or something like that,
Okay.
which
I mean, that's differentiation right there, Livy, you've
it
got
is differentiation. And I do let them normally work in pairs.
Mhm.
Um,
Which sometimes is
I
great, and sometimes they do not help each other in pairs.
Yes,
You have to, like, match the right kids together because they'll if you let them pick, they'll pick a friend, and then
yes.
sometimes one's really strong and does all the work, and the other one's just copying, and they're learning nothing.
Mhm.
Or, you've got them both clueless if you don't have one that kinda gets it. Yeah, because that's I mean, peer tutoring and putting kids together in pairs, I mean, that's kind of a way of being able to remediate,
Yes,
differentiate as well because you kinda are using because a kid that is able to really fully explain how to do it to another child is really showing that they fully understand the concept if they can
yes.
then teach it. Um, so I think that's a good way. You just have to be really smart about who you put
Yeah.
together. And I've moved my desks around so many times already this year because of just talking behavior, attention needs, all those kind of things. But I do typically like to kind of think, okay, because I like to use as much turn and talk and those kind of things as possible of like who sits near who so that they can benefit each other to have a good quality conversation or help each other. And you don't want kids that are at the same, necessarily the exact same level if you're kind of looking for those peer tutoring abilities.
Yeah.
I talked about okay, so it says how we kinda do it in our classroom, which I think we've talked about,
Yes.
some. I do have my sped students in my room and a co-teacher that comes in. So when I'm doing a whole group lesson, she's kinda checking in on those to make sure they're focused for one thing. Sometimes they're just, like, living in their own world. Um and just kind of reiterating some of the questioning strategies that I'm doing with those kids and kind of helping them through. Sometimes she pulls them out, even though she's a co-teacher, and I'm like, "Is that okay?" Because I know it's more like a resource thing, but we only do that every once in a while, and it's really
Mhm.
is like when I'm doing small groups, is she goes ahead and takes the kids that she serves and does it in her own room, and that just creates less distractions for them. Unless distractions within my small group's room. I mean, if I had her I don't have enough tables in my room for her to pull a small group within my same classroom. So she pulls them out every once in a while when we do small groups. Um,
That's
and
how the last one of the day my class is in EI support. So, like, sometimes she'll be like, "Are you going to go through the lesson today?" And I was like, "Yeah," but she's like, "Can I pull them early?" I'm like, "Sure, go
yeah,
for it." I'm like, especially if what we are doing is like a review of what we did the day before.
mhm.
We'll talk before, and sometimes she just pulls them right away. Sometimes they sit in there for the lesson, and then she pulls them. Um, but I think it's helpful for them because sometimes they are clueless.
Yeah, yeah,
You
they
can
really need
tell.
that. Yeah. Um, oh, that made me think of something. Oh, so this year we actually don't, because of the way we switch classes. In previous years, we've had a specific intervention time, so I can pull the kids that have, MTSS interventions and things, and those kids at that time would get pulled by the EIP teacher out of the room. Fifth grade doesn't have any of the support like that this year, so we
Oh.
don't have like you have your, what do you call it, IE,
Yeah, EI.
EI, class period where they get pulled out. So I have EIP kids and kids in the RTI process that are in tier 2 and tier 3, where I have to do their interventions with them. They do have some support where some of those kids of tier 3 get, like, pulled out to work on their specific intervention, which is nice. But, like, my EIP kids, I have to serve them within my classroom. Um, and so I really do kinda have to focus on, differentiation because those kids are, they're, on the roster showing they need more support, but, we don't have, what I've had in previous years where those some kids can get pulled, so having to get creative within my own classroom of how to help those kids, as much as possible be successful.
I
Um
have noticed so we have the, man, what do we call it? ELT, extra learning time.
Mhm,
We have an hour a day, and that's when I really can differentiate. That's when I can look at, like, how I mean, I have a few that get pulled out for certain things,
mhm.
whatever, but I have most of my class, and that's where I do make the groups, and I'm like, "Okay, y'all are working on this," and I'll pull and get them to look at their tests or quizzes or whatever we have,
Uh-huh.
or we'll go over homework. That's where I differentiate the most
That's
group.
nice that you have that.
Yes.
So how do you, because you teach math science
Mhm.
and you teach 2 groups,
Yes.
how, how long are the class segments? The periods, I should say.
Um, 90-minute, well, an hour, I think, for science, and then 90 minutes for math, and then my last block's, like, a little bit less than 90 minutes. But the reason why we still have that is our kids don't get science and social studies at the same time.
Ah, so you don't.
So I teach my homeroom science when my switch teacher's teaching social studies,
Uh-huh.
and we'll keep them for 3 weeks, and then we'll flip. So
Okay.
then I'll teach my switch teacher's homeroom science while my homeroom's getting social
Okay,
studies.
yeah, because I was trying to listen to your schedule going, "Okay, well, then how do you have," okay, so 90-minute and a 90-minute math block's nice.
It is.
That's a big chunk of time. Um, okay, and then you have your extra learning time as your another hour of the day. I was just trying to figure out how it all worked. I'm like, "How in the I have a longer school day than I do?" It makes
Yeah,
more sense now that you're saying the science social studies thing. Yeah.
yeah.
But then, yeah, you definitely have the time built in to do some good differentiation. You'll get better at it. You just,
Yes,
you know, takes time.
it does. And I've been talking to people like, "What are you doing?" Just to make sure I am
Mhm.
on
Right,
track.
right.
Okay.
Did we
We've
talk yet about the 3 differentiation techniques?
No, we did not.
And that was in her lecture, I believe is what that, yeah, in the lecture.
Yes.
She talked about differentiating with lined paper as an organizer for students that with sloppier handwriting. I've used that a lot. Have you ever used that where instead of lined paper going this way, you turn it this way so it's in columns for math?
We did graph paper when we were multiplying and dividing.
Okay.
Um,
It's got the physical little boxes. I feel like it
yeah.
helps a lot because if they don't line things up, I mean, with multi-digit multiplication, with long division, subtraction, I mean, it helps with anything if a kid has kind of some sloppier handwriting. So when she said that, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I use that." Man, that was a game changer for me when I don't remember how many years into teaching someone showed me that, and I was like, "Yes, that's amazing."
Yes. Our, like, math coach showed it to me, and she modeled a lesson, and she also used colored pencils, and she showed how, like, this was with an area model and multiplication,
Uh-huh.
and she did the multiplication in different colors, and it was, like, adding them up, and then
Mhm,
showed how that's the same thing you get when you do partial
mhm,
product,
mhm,
um, getting the same answer and the same numbers, and I
mhm.
think that helped click some stuff with some of my students because they were like, "How do you go from the box to this and then to standard
They're so
algorithm?"
related. It's like, guys,
Yeah.
just look at it. It's the same 4 products if you're doing a 2 times 2 digit number, you know?
Mhm.
Or it's the same 6 products if it's a 3 times 2 digit number. So when you have them side by side, we do a lot of notice and wonders, which are like the Georgia DOE provides like the 2 different strategies already worked out by a kid and shown.
Mhm.
And the kids and it lets them sit back, analyze, see connections, make those connections and things, and not get overwhelmed with just having to solve it, but just analyze it. And they start to make those connections and patterns. They're like, "Oh yeah, I see that, you know, um, if you're multiplying partial products that yeah, those numbers that you're multiplying do you see them in the same thing in the area model inside the boxes." But I like it with the colors.
Yes.
Cool. We don't have do you guys have a academic is that your academic coach?
Mhm.
Yeah. We don't I liked that we had an academic coach in Gainesville City. I don't think it was always used. Like we had meetings, I feel like every Wednesday, we had like a PLC every Wednesday. And sometimes it was useful and sometimes it was a little overkill with like what we were exactly spending the time doing. But we don't have one this year and I feel like it's so useful for them to kind of teach you some strategies and things that you can
Yes.
do. And I love the modeling of lessons and whatnot. Um, I made a note in the techniques about differentiation by process. I often start units with concrete manipulatives, then move to drawings, and then abstractly with numbers. So, I mean, technically, just doing that is
Yes.
differentiating. So, I mean, you should do that with all units. You start very concrete and you want it to be, conceptual. And then obviously you can't work with manipulatives forever. So you move to showing them how to do it with drawings and then they can just do the process at that point with numbers when they understand the conceptual behind it. But some kids are ready faster than others to work with the abstract, the numbers. And some kids continue to need to use manipulatives or drawings. So that's differentiation right there without having to put so much planning. It's like I think that's one of the standards of mathematical practice is like choosing tools appropriately. So
Yes.
showing them the different tools they can use, and you're hoping everyone moves to the abstract, but they're going to move at different paces, and then letting them go. Okay, well, if you need this tool to keep working, you choose your tool that you need, and then letting them continue to use what supports them. I mean, that's differentiation without having to plan too much.
Yes.
Letting them choose the tool that helps them. Um, And then the open questions she talks about, what did I say? I use more of these this year so that all kids can participate and think deeply at their own level. A lot of those notice wonders, the similarities and differences kind of things
Mhm.
they're doing, all kids can participate, even if it's a simple, like, oh, it's the same problem. Like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
technically right. And then the kids that are a little smarter will be like, well, I see this connection. And then they talk about the patterns they see. And then other kids are like, oh, no, I see it too. But it's very open ended kind of questions. I made a note that I've tried the parallel tasks that Dr. Chain mentions with the 2 options for students to pick from.
Yeah.
Most kids I think it helps to not tell them which one's the challenge. I've done that in the past where it's like, "Kids that are ready, here's a question you can do or you can take the challenge." And everyone wants a challenge because that's exciting, right? And then some kids aren't
Yes.
ready. Um but she made a note that if you do that, but like I think the way she had it, you don't really know which one's the challenge. You just say, "Hey, here's option A and here's option B."
Yeah.
And the kids pick. And she made it kind of clear that if they do pick the one that's not the right one for them, they'll try it and they may go, okay, I'm gonna try the other one. And
Yes.
so they're kind of doing something that's more on their level. But if you let them know it's a challenge, I think that can get tricky because they might want to do a challenge, but they're not ready.
Mhm. Yeah.
um but I do like the parallel tasks because those are all I liked a lot of the things she mentioned because I think what makes differentiation hard in the math classroom is the fact that it's not as concrete with what to put them in small groups for.
Yes.
Um, and so when you can differentiate just within a whole group lesson, you're still, differentiating and supporting these kids with what they need. And then, you can still pull in small groups. It's just not as, you know, straightforward of how to put them in small groups the way it is in reading.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. Did you do any of those last week? Any of the things that she asked or the examples?
Um, that was like the different strategies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I already kind of do a lot of them. So there was really none of them I like tried
Yeah.
that I had never tried. Did you?
I need to look more into the parallel tasks
Uh-huh.
because I've never done one of those, but I do ask them open-ended questions.
Mhm.
That's a lot of the, like, "Which one doesn't belong?"
Mhm. Mhm.
And
I like
they
that what
like those. They're
Yeah,
like,
they do. I guess we haven't talked about that since we last met, I don't think, because we practiced them together and then we had to go do them with the kids,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Um, they liked that a lot, and then what was the other one that we did?
The
Uh,
number talks. I
Number
haven't
talks they really liked.
yes.
That went really well as well. I mean, really, everything we've done in this course has been, because I'm teaching math mostly, been so applicable and enjoyable to, like, try in the room and see what works and, like, try new things I haven't tried before because the longer you teach, the more you get used to how you do things, and you don't necessarily always try new things,
Right.
because
Yes.
you get comfortable and used to the way you do things. Um, so it's been fun to kinda try new things and go, "Oh, that worked," or "That didn't work," and most work. Like, I'm like, "Oh, it totally makes sense why there's research behind why this is a great strategy for kids."
Yes.
And it's, it wasn't that hard to do, and the kids did better than I thought, and, so I've definitely taken away a lot from this course for sure.
I have to.
Um, did you put down any thoughts on, the struggles and difficulties of differentiation besides the amount of time it takes? And I think we kinda talked about it. I mean,
Yeah.
forming
The
groups,
amount of
managing
time,
groups.
and then for me being new, I'm like, "Okay, what am I actually doing?" And with you teaching 3rd and 4th grade, you kinda have those building blocks.
Right.
You kinda know what they're supposed to know,
Mhm. For
and for
yeah.
me, I'm like, "Okay, what are they supposed to know? What did they learn last year? How did they teach it? And then where are their gaps?"
Mhm.
So it is hard, I have to, like, go through a little bit more steps.
There are some
Uh,
videos you can watch. Let me see if I can find them real quick. Um, is it called horizontal? No, vertical. It's like how the standards grow on each other through the years, the progressions of things. Okay, so Graham Fletcher progression videos. So if you type that into Google, Graham
yeah,
Fletcher progression videos, you can watch a progression video on what grade it builds on each things. Like there's one on progression of division. So even if you haven't experienced teaching those other grades, you can watch a clip. Doesn't take very long. And I can send you I'll just send it to your email. These progression videos. So like before a unit, watch one of these. They don't take very long, and it just lets you. So I'm sending you the link where it has all the different ones, progression of multiplication, progression of fractions, progression of fraction to decimals. So it even shows what they'll do as they go into middle school. It shows
okay,
what they did in 3rd and 4th grade, and it kind of lets you know what they should know coming into you. And then that way you kind of can go, well, they don't know that.
yes,
So what is the gap because math it builds on each other.
mhm,
So it's like if the strong foundation's not strong, yeah, they're gonna really struggle with this harder stuff we're doing in 5th grade and, like, where being able to go back and go, "Okay, where in your understanding is the weak foundation?"
yeah,
Those progression videos will help you a lot with that
okay,
because you're right, you haven't taught the other grades, and honestly, everyone should probably watch these videos. It might be something that I, send to Dr. Chang to say, "Hey, with newer teachers, this might be something to let them know if you're teaching math. It's you need to kind of know how they build on each other, so you know where the gaps are, why they're there, and how can you help them, fill
yes,
those gaps. When I made a note, obviously about time. Also, you have to have really good class management and time management to do small groups and differentiation. If you're going I mean, you can like she said, there's all kinds of ways you can differentiate within a whole group lesson. But if you are gonna put them into small groups or centers and those kind of things, I mean, McDonald was amazing at differentiation. Um,
yes,
and McDonald, if you're listening, Dr. Chang, was Livy's, mentor teacher in 3rd grade last year, and she teaches at the school that I'm at, and she's got the most amazing classroom management. I feel like that woman I would love to be a fly on her wall. I just know she does because you could just her kids are always well behaved, and, like, in the hallway, they always have, like, the best behavior. You could just tell her class like, my husband has done, like, career day and different things at the school, and when her class comes in, he's like, "Man, that teacher's class is amazing." I'm like, "I don't know. She has got it figured out with classroom
Yes.
management." Um, and I've gotten slightly better with classroom management over time, but it's not I mean, like, kinda makes you wonder, like, what is the magic that you put into the world that makes your classroom run so absolutely beautifully?
Yeah.
Um,
And, like, if you looked at her, she's, like, not strict.
yeah, right,
And I'm
exactly.
like, "What did you do at the beginning of the year to set these standards?" Like
Right, I know, I know. Well, that's true, you weren't there beginning of the year, so you don't really know. You were there at the end. Yeah, it's like, why how do they I don't know, because I have some goofballs that, my god, no matter how many times I remind them or give them laps for things or call their parents and stuff, and they're still just they could care less, or they
Yeah,
don't try, or they
whatever.
and I'm like, "I don't know, she just has this real great sense of classroom culture and, like, family, and expectations are high, and so she can do these groups and these centers, and the kids all do what they're supposed to." It's like, "What?" "What are you doing? How do you do this?" Yeah, she's one I need to ask because she was the one you told me to ask about the Number Talks book, and so I went
Yes.
to her, and then we had to do peer observations, where all of us had to go into somebody's classroom and watch them on differentiation, and, one person had said that, "You should go in McDonald's room." She's like the expert on differentiation. Um, so you at least have been able to see, how she does it, so you kinda know but do you have if you have tried small groups like that, do you have some issues like I do with, like, kids if they're not with you doing what they're supposed to?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
There are a few that I would have, like, a computer rotation,
Mhm,
and I'm like, "I know they're probably not on what they're supposed to be on right now,"
mhm.
but
But so I
it's
mean,
like
so how do you manage I mean, do you guys have any kind of a way to check what's on their computers while they're
we
working?
have Go Guardian,
Yeah, I have experience with that, yeah.
but it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not gonna stare at my computer screen when I'm trying to help everybody else, so it's like a,
Exactly, so
"What
you
do I
can peek in
do?"
on it yeah, you can peek in on it and go, "Oh, that kid's on the wrong thing," and you can block that page or whatnot. I liked GoGuardian better than I'm using this year. We're using something called Hapara, um, which goes because everything we have is Google based. GoGuardian, you can make it where everything's blocked except the site you push out.
Yes.
So if you play around with it some, I like that. Mine, I can't do that. I like they can get on what they want, and I can block per page, or I can say, and I've taken away some kids that just can't handle computer. They've lost the privilege to use a computer, even if
Yeah,
it's computer rotation, and everything they have to do is on paper. Um,
right.
but we try other things first. We block the tabs, we talk to them, they walk laps, we talk about how computers are a privilege, and if want to be able to do the learning games and or whatever it may be that the task that requires computer, you have to use your computer appropriately. And if you can't handle that, then I'll get your parents' approval. We'll talk about it, and we'll take a hiatus from the computer for a while. And that's
Yes.
how some of them.
Mhm. And I found out, like, a lot of them like to listen to music, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm fine with that," but then I'll look and I'm like, "Okay, you're spending 50% of your time on music and 50% on
Mhm.
actually working, and that's not cool." And sometimes I take music away and they're all like, "Oh," and then they blame this one kid, and I'm like, "It's not just him."
Mm-mm, exactly. That's a fine line too. There's times I'm like, why did I ever let? Because for some kids it helps.
Yes.
Like music, totally, they're, like, into it, and they're, like, doing their math and,
Uh-huh.
and jamming, and then some kids are just yeah, they're, spending all their time picking music and stuff. Sometimes I'll just do, like, fun music as, like, the whole like, in the background for the whole class, and everyone has the same tastes, I know. But,
Yeah.
I mean, mine, they can fuss sometimes, like, "Why is that kid allowed to?" Or, "Why, did you tell me I have to, put it away?" It's like, "I know what's best for you. I need you to trust me.
Mhm.
And my job is to make sure that you have learned what you're supposed to move on to middle school. Um,
Mhm.
so if I feel like it's not working for you, then that's something I have to remove. And if it does work for you, or I was like, you just have to trust my judgment. That's the biggest thing.
Yes.
And my kids, we have a really good relationship. That's a big piece of it too. It's like I'm not being mean. I'm just saying, hey, this isn't working for you, so we're going to try this instead.
Right.
Um, or I'll make a goal like motivate wise, if they're doing IXL, you know how it goes up on, like, how many they get correct, like a percentage,
Yeah.
and they have to get to 100 for it to, like, have mastered the skill. So I may say, "Okay, well, you need to be really focused, and once you hit 50%, or if it's a harder skill, maybe 75%, then that's shown you've put your full focus into it, you understand it, and music won't keep you from, getting up
Yeah.
to the 100." But some kids are like, "I'm only at 20%. Can I get on music?" And I'm like, "No,
No.
because your full focus you need to put into this skill, and you haven't shown that you understand the skill enough." And some kids, if it's a motivation, like, they just don't want to, because IXL is kind of boring. I give it to them. I don't use it a ton. I really don't. Um, because I mean, it's really just to show, it's just a little, it's just kind of like an electronic version of a little bit of more independent practice they could do, like, on a worksheet. Um, if a kid doesn't understand it, it doesn't work for them. It's for a kid who needs to show the mastery of
Yeah.
what that they've understand it. So I only use it a little bit, and it's once they fully understand the topic, and sometimes that's like, okay, that's your IXL skill you're doing for my independent kids while I pull a remediation group. Um, but if you want to motivate them because they're like, oh, I don't want to do IXL, and they've got a horrible attitude about it, sometimes saying, "Okay, well, once you get to this level of percentage done, then you can finish with music." And that, if it's just a motivation thing and they just don't wanna do it, but they can, sometimes that motivates them. They're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna work hard so that I can earn the reward of
Yes.
music while I finish." So that works too. That's some things you could try. But yeah, music is a slippery slope with some of these 5th graders with their attitudes.
Oh, yeah.
Ah! Yeah, 5th grade teachers are I know that's what Dr. Chang taught for a while. I love it, but with the hormones and the attitudes and something, I mean, we definitely deal with some things that the younger elementaries do not, quite
Yes.
have it to deal with.
And I'm a little bit nervous about after Christmas because everybody keeps saying, "Wait till after Christmas." I'm
Yeah.
like,
Mine this year already started with some of the attitude stuff long before the after Christmas, like, I'm done with 5th grade kinda attitude that comes back
yeah.
after Christmas. Um, and so I don't think mine are gonna be much different after it. I mean, I've dealt with kinda them having a lazy kinda late I don't know, I've just had to really turn around some of their like, I think we did, like, a thing about how some kids come to you with either liking math or not liking math, thinking they're good at math or thinking that they're bad at
Yeah.
it, and just kinda break down those barriers and show kids all of you can be successful, at your own pace, this just that kinda growth mentality of, "I don't know it, but if I keep working toward it," you know? So a lot of that of, you may not be able to do it yet, but you can,
Yes.
and the just not giving up, and, pushing through, and then letting kinda leveling the playing field with, like, activities like the which one doesn't belong, where, like, you can't be wrong kinda thing.
Yeah.
So I think doing all those things, have has helped all my kids. I don't really have anyone now who's like, "I can't do math, so thus I don't try."
Yes.
So that was a good kind of barrier to break through, because that can be hard as a 5th grader. Some are just like, I know I'm bad at this, and so I know I'm gonna fail math anyway, and I'm not gonna try." And
Yeah.
they have to get past their own attitudes so that you can, get through to them that, um, yeah, just so that everyone can progress at their own pace. I mean, some are gonna math's gonna come faster and easier to them, and that's just because they're naturally, I mean, that's, I feel like, almost genetic, like a math brain to be able to do things. It comes easy to some kids and it doesn't to some.
Right. And I sat down in a parent-teacher conference with one student, and he was like, "I just feel like I fail every quiz." And I'm like, "Yeah, you do great on them." But I'm like, "Don't put your goal as, 'I'm gonna make 100 on this next quiz.' Make
Uh-huh.
it a 70, and then
Yeah,
make
and
small
just
goals."
improve at your yeah. Yeah, but my kids really care about their grades this year. Like, if they finish an assignment and I go to grade it right away because 'cause they're still working on something, or, like, we're watching a video in science and, like, I'm trying to use my class time, or they know that I did it after school, like, I try to grade stuff pretty quick after they do it. They want to know how they did. Like, they're
Yes.
motivated to do well. I don't have a lot of kids this year that are like, "Eh, I don't really care how this goes." Like,
Yes.
almost everyone is really, and I don't know if it's the way they came to me or if I've just really made it clear to them that the effort you put in is what you get out of it. And I relate it a lot to, like, me being in school right now. And I think the fact that they know that I'm working hard on things to better myself as a teacher. I don't know if it's just those open conversations,
Mhm.
um, is why they care so much. Because in the past, I've had some that I'm like, I can't get through to this kid. He or she's just not motivated. Um, all that matters is the social life, and da, da, da. I mean, I feel like all my kids enjoy math, they enjoy the lessons we're doing. I'm mixing it up enough where it's not all worksheets, it's, some hands-on, some, game-based. I don't yeah, I feel like this year's just going a lot better in general with how I'm teaching math and how the kids are receiving it and their
Yeah.
attitude towards it. So, clearly, some of these things that we're learning in this class that we're applying to our classroom is like, "Oh, that works."
Yes.
That's what gets these kids. So, I think because we're trying these things, I don't think you should freak about, like, what they're gonna come back in January as. I've never
Yeah.
really seen, like, a huge shift. Um, I just keep reiterating to them, like, middle school gets harder, like, let's enjoy every day
Mhm.
that we're here together, and learn as much as we can so you're as prepared as you can be for when you go to middle school. Um but I just have a really sweet group this year where I don't have as much pushback with like, "Oh, I don't wanna do this. Like bad attitude kind of about like, "Oh, it's so much work. Oh, it's so hard." Most are I have some every once in a while, and I just pull them aside at recess, and I'm like, why are we having such a bad attitude? Like, you're ruining the vibe in the classroom."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" And I'm
Right.
like, "When you're griping and groping over there, then that kinda puts that negative attitude onto other kids, and then that spreads, and then everyone's kinda going, ugh." And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "Does that make the lesson more enjoyable for you when you're just sitting around griping that this is hard or that you don't wanna do it or you came in tired today," or whatever it may be? Um, and then that kinda gets to them, and I'm like, "Let's just all have a positive attitude about it," and if you come into things with a positive attitude, it usually is a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, okay." But, yeah, I don't have that many of them, and if I do have 1 or 2 that do that and I kinda see it's affecting others, I'll just pull them at recess and have a talk like, "Are things good at home? What's going on? Why are you" well, and a lot of times it's like, "Oh, I didn't feel very good today," or, "I didn't get enough sleep last night," or, there's usually a reason behind it. I'm like, "Okay, well,
Right.
let's how can you fix this at home tonight or whatever and
Yeah.
come back in tomorrow with a better attitude, or what can I do that would help?" Just kinda have a quick conversation to check in on him at recess, just so that that bad attitude doesn't spread like wildfire to the others. Because with,
Mhm.
hormones and 5th graders, it can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really quickly. Um, okay. Are you ready to talk about some ELLs?
Yeah, yeah.
I know that at Lumpkin, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to say your school. I don't know if we're
No,
supposed
you
to do
can.
that or not.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Your experience is probably different than in Hall County.
Right.
But the first question says, do you have ELL students in your current classroom or have you had them in the past? Um, I said I have 2 right now,
Okay.
but mine are like higher. They're pretty fluent in English based on some of the other ELL students in 5th grade.
Uh-huh.
Um, like
Are
mine,
yours, served ELL or are they monitored?
they're monitored. I
So,
just
like, at one
remember.
point they were ELL, but they haven't gotten the access score enough to exit
Yes.
ESOL services, but they're monitored, so you kinda keep an eye
Okay.
yeah, I've had a lot of those too, where yeah, they're, like, right on the cusp, like, they could literally pass their access test in the spring when they take it, or it's, like, late winter, early spring, they usually take it. Um,
Yes.
and then I've had some that are so you're right, where I am now, I have none, and currently, again, the way they have a 5th grade set up with us, you have a teacher that does all the SPED and some RTI kids. You have a teacher that does EIP and RTI. Then you have an all gifted teacher. So they've got the cream of the crop. And if they're not gifted, then they've shown high achieving. So they've got a challenge in their own way to extend, and they have to have a gifted certificate and everything. And then you have an ELL teacher, and that's
Mhm.
Miss Garrett. And then you have to have obviously the endorsement for ESOL as well to be that teacher. And so because we're broken up like that, our classrooms all look so completely different. Mine being the SPED classroom, I've got different challenges in that way. But I mean, it's still I have experience having some ELLs. When I was in Gainesville City, I mean, it's obviously a heavy Hispanic population. The hardest part I think was when kids came in and spoke almost no English.
Mm.
Uh, but when they're immersed in a English speaking only classroom, man, do they learn English fast. It's crazy
Yes.
how fast they can, coming to you, I mean, literally speaking almost no English.
Mhm.
Um, so I since I've been a Lumpkin, I haven't had any, um, so it just hasn't been a focus for me. So it
Yeah.
was kind of good to look back and go, "Oh, yeah, what are some things that in the past I've used and what the text suggests, you use and whatnot." Um So I mean, you might see more because do you guys you said you have some ELL population
We
at your
have
school?
some, but not a big population. I think we have, like, less than 10 in our entire 5th grade, and we have 14 5th grade teachers.
Okay.
Um, so it's not a very high population at
Right.
all.
Right. Right.
That's why, the next question was like, "What do you do in your own classroom to teach ELL students?" And I was like, nothing."
I don't have
But
to.
then I was talking to other teachers, and they're like, "Well, like, I call on them differently, like, if I know they have the correct answer, that's when I'll call on them to
Mhm.
build that confidence, or I'll
Yeah.
give them the easier questions, like the open-ended questions."
Mhm.
I was like, "Well, I do that subconsciously, like, I just do
Mhm.
that."
Mhm.
Or, like, if I'm saying we are adding, I'll be like, "Okay, so we're gonna put this and this together, so we're finding the total. So
Right.
will our number get bigger or smaller?"
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and I feel like the strategies that work for ELL students work for all students.
yes.
You know, it doesn't hurt to be using some of these strategies. I made a note that I've used math word walls with picture clues.
Yes.
Visuals are a big part. That's why that whole chapter is about like visuals and gestures. And like you said, I naturally use gestures. Um, I'm just like more of a hand talker. I feel like when I teach,
Mhm.
I'm up there like putting on a horse and pony show, trying to get them to
Same.
pay attention to me. Um, and so I think I do it naturally, but it is something to be more aware of. Um,
Yes.
I did talk about when I had some come, from, other, countries and not, they only spoke Spanish or could read in Spanish. I had if you when we had a curriculum, of course, where I am now, I don't have one, but where you could print those worksheets and tests and everything directly in Spanish.
Yes.
So that they could participate a little better, and so they'd be able to read what we're currently doing in Spanish on their worksheet as where everyone else's is in English, but then they would hear me and up there modeling it and showing it in English. So I think that part kind of helped too with how quickly they made connections between English words and Spanish words because they'd hear them, see them
Mhm.
interchangeably, kind of a thing.
Yes.
Mm.
And you would think that math would be kinda easier because numbers are
Mhm,
fluent everywhere, but
mhm,
then we have, like, words like add and subtract and find the sum,
right.
and so interchangeable that
Yeah, the mathematic vocabulary, yeah, can make it a little trickier on them, but you're right, numbers are more universal. So if I got ELL students, often math was the subject. They're like, "Oh, I pretty much know what she's doing," to an extent.
yes.
They got to word problems, then it's like, "Ooh." Which word
Yeah.
problems for every kid is like, break it down and whatnot. Um, so I guess we can go into the chapters on the ELL.
Yes.
Hi, kitty.
Um, so the first question for 5 is how can you use visuals to facilitate multilingual learners' understanding of mathematical concepts that you teach? I say that, like for our program, we have to draw a lot of pictures.
Mhm,
But in the reading, she took cookies and made like fake cookies and like divided them out, which I was like, oh, I've never really thought about doing that.
mhm,
Or with the chairs, put them in rows and columns. I think somebody did that as their math movement in one of the discussions. I think they did something similar.
mhm,
And then she modeled what an obstacle course was.
mhm,
I think there are some things that I probably do, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess they don't know what that is."
mhm. That's a big part of it too, is I think that's what it goes into as you go to not the visuals and gestures one, but, the learner's language one, I think talks more
Yeah.
about that. So yeah, I wrote incorporating visuals into the curriculum material can aid student comprehension of abstract concepts while providing a connection to language. Um, and so acting things out, I try to make, like she said, with the cookies. I've actually read that I think it's a Marilyn Burns book. The doorbell rang. I
Uh-huh.
remember doing that. That's a third grade concept when they first learned division, and I think I brought in real cookies just to make it fun instead of like she did. So when I read that, I was like, "I did that lesson. I've done that." But they loved it with the real cookies. Oh my gosh. But the visuals can be pictures, they can be real physical things. They talk about bringing in like props. When we talk about, we do a lot of word problems because milestones is so word problem heavy. And
Yeah.
so Georgia DOE lessons are very word problem heavy. And so we sometimes like visual wise, like talk through the word problem, make it like a real story, act it out if we have to, make sure kids are fully understanding like how the word problem is applicable to real life. And then what operation would you use to solve this? Make it real life. Well, if I'm putting things into even groups, then it's obviously division. Or if, um, like, instead of just finding, like, I've in the past used like cube strategy where you circle and you underline and you find the keywords and whatnot, but that doesn't make it real. And we're talking about like multilingual learners where it needs to be as real as possible. So acting things out and
Yes.
just restating the word problem as, okay, so I see this is a group of fifth graders. Oh, that's like us. And they're going on a field trip and we got to make sure they fit in the bus, right? And we got to see how many buses that we need to bring when we know we can fit 2 kids per seat, so like relate it to, things, real life things. And of course, the word problem's already done for you. And it's funny, some of the concepts, the word problems they choose on the Georgia DOE are not like reasonable. Like one was they had to get chairs and tables from a rental company and they wanted to, this is a long division one they had recently, and we watched a read aloud of a book also by Marilyn Burns that did the When the Doorbell Rang, and it was called Spaghetti and Meatballs for All. And they were having like a big party and they had to create different seating arrangements to fit the 32 people. And so it started where she was like, well, I'm gonna have 32 people come, so I know I'm gonna have 8 separate tables and there'd be 4 people sitting at each table. But then as people came, she kept like rearranging the tables, like putting 2 tables together. But then when you put 2 tables together, we talked about, okay, well, now you're missing the space where like the 2 that where it was 4 people. So if you put them together, you now only can fit 6 people. See what I'm saying? Because they're
Yeah.
missing the 2 connect there. And so I gave them like Unifix cubes and they drew out different table arrangements on their desk. So I made it as visual as possible and they tried out all these different ways. And then we talked about the cost. So the cost for each table was like the certain size tables had different costs. So if you got the small tables that fit 4 people around them, they were like this much money per table. So if they decided to set it up that way, so they were able to figure out different budgets and costs. But one part of the question that we were all like, this is stupid, like this is not real life, it was like every chair from the rental company is $12. And I was like, $12 a chair? I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. So we calculated there was like 120 students in the 5th grade. So they would need to spend $1,440 just on chairs. But then when it came to like figuring out the different table arrangements costs, they were like maybe like $200, $300. And I was like, that's not real life. They messed up on this. Like, this is not a real
Yeah.
reasonable cost for them to, for the tables to be that much per table, but each chair is $12. And so we kind of, they'll kind of call it out being like, that's not a reasonable. Oh, there was another one we did that was funny. It was like they had to figure out the perimeter around a playground. They were going to make fencing around a playground at a school, but the principal wanted a gap in the fencing every like 15 feet. And I'm like, why would they put gaps in a fence? Like, isn't the whole point to keep kids in so they're safe? But it was
Yeah.
just wanted them to do long division and to take the amount of fencing. So say it was, like several hundred something, whatever number it was of fencing, and then put a gap between every 15 feet of fencing, how many gaps would be. And I was like, I get it's long division, but why are we putting gaps in fences? And then we were
Yeah.
like trying to come up with like a reasonable, something reasonable for it to go with. It was like maybe they planted a bush there or a tree. And I was like, why would you put gaps in a fence? So I mean, they analyze word problems and are able to call things out of like I don't know. I feel like this year's group, because I tackle word problems the way I do and act things out and make it fun and make it applicable to real life, they'll either be like, that word's problem makes sense, like logically, or they used the wrong numbers. They like, why are we putting holes in like gaps in fences and stuff? And so I don't think any of my kids have a defeated attitude about word problems because of that. But it's just funny. We'll kind of call it out as we see it when we're like, that wasn't a good word problem. Let's see if we can.
Yeah.
And I've had mine make word problems this year themselves. So they have a really comfortable attitude towards word problems, which is good because that especially ELLs are kind of one of those things where it's like, that makes you want to shut down instead of it just
Yeah.
being numbers, you know?
Yeah. I remember you saying something about that a few meetings ago. So I have been trying to make the word problems we do more like, okay, this is realistic.
Right.
Um, while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But we're dividing fractions right now, and if you do a whole number divided by a fraction, you get a whole number, and then if it's a fraction divided by a whole number, you get a fraction. So
Mhm.
I was trying to tell them, like, is it really realistic if I start with a half a pan of brownies? Is it really realistic for me to get 6 pans of brownies if
Mhm.
I divide them? And they're
Yeah.
like, "Okay."
You make it yeah, you gotta make it as applicable to real life and yeah. So they can be like, "You're right. That's why the numbers do that the way that's why the conceptual understanding is when you first teach it is so important and not just to jump into the abstract."
Yeah.
Start with conceptual, make it real life, connected, work with manipulatives, work with drawings and visuals, and then move to the abstract. Because if you just when we were in school, you just jumped right into the abstract and you just all you did was you were just like a little robot that followed what your teacher did and followed steps and you got an answer.
Yes.
You didn't really understand anything about the why, which sometimes as a teacher now makes it hard to go, "Wait, what is the reason why? I never
Yeah.
learned what the reason why is."
Yeah, that's what
And I
I've
don't want
been
my kids
finding.
to be in that same yeah, so you kinda have to take your time to fully understand it so that you don't, continue this cycle of kids just thinking math is a bunch of procedures and not the reasoning behind it and how it applies to real life.
Yes. Um, chapter 8, this is where you're talking about the meanings, investigate meanings of the words,
Mhm.
and how she breaks down, like, the rolls of dinner rolls or the rolls of
Mhm.
coins, and it was the rolls of T-shirts.
Right, I
Um,
liked that too, that getting kids to talk about the multiple meanings of a word because in the English language, there are so many that are just multiple meaning words.
yeah,
And getting kids to access their prior knowledge and then relate it into, well, with this, we're using this term in this case, like, yeah, how we roll up a shirt, like a way to fold it.
yeah,
Um, so that was I liked that strategy when I was listening to her. Um,
and then it with quadrilateral, she breaks it down to, like, "Okay, what word do you hear in quad?"
mhm,
And I think when I read it, I might have read the word wrong, but she also said, like, you could say, like, quad or quattro
mhm,
and, like, kinda help them know that, "Okay, I know that quattro means 4,
right,
so quadrilateral would mean 4."
mhm,
Kinda turning it into a phonics lesson, but also connecting it to Spanish.
mhm. So a lot of things in math are Latin-based language,
Yeah,
kind of root word kind of things. Um, and so because Spanish is a Latin-based language, that's why she was able to yeah, I liked that she did that quadrilateral because yeah, like bi means two, uno or like one or uni
yeah,
means one. That relates uno, so kind of getting them to understand root words. And that's part of what we do in fifth grade anyway, is understanding Greek and Latin root words. And so that I think using those things that are in ELA into how it relates to math. Like we talked about when we did measurement conversions, what kilo means, what
mhm,
um, and so understanding the root words and how it relates to different mathematical language.
yeah.
Um,
Um, one of the teachers I was talking to yesterday who has the ESOL students, she was talking about she was like, "I don't understand, like, after 3rd grade, why we only push ESOL into reading or ELA classrooms and not math."
mm,
Because she was like, "There's so many things in math that these ESOL students don't know how to
mhm,
do because they don't know some of those words."
mhm,
I was
mhm,
like, I mean, I guess I never thought about that.
mhm. Will you stop coming in and out of this room?
I'm sorry, you have the clothes in here that I need to put.
Happy birthday, Morgan.
Thank you. Thank you. Who was it?
Livy.
Hi, Libby.
He's like, who's this? She was a student teacher in my classroom last year. We're in this
Wait, I met her.
red hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Livy with the red hair. Everyone's like, that's what she's known as.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, yeah."
Not going in that one. Um, what did I put here? What are some ways you can distinguish between specific academic meanings of language, particularly words that may hinder mathematical successes? I said access prior knowledge and then explain the academic use of the word to better clarify its meaning in a mathematical context. Because sometimes the word might mean something different than when it's in a math sense.
Yes.
And then, yeah, you already mentioned the quad and the quattro thing. I made a note about that. And what did you notice about the term? And then what are some action steps that she used to foster the language development, sounding out the syllables? I think in general, this is something every teacher needs to get better at, is less teacher talk and more student talk. Getting your kids to
Yeah,
talk
this is
about,
hard.
because ELLs are going to naturally be the quieter ones. It helps if you have ones that they can even talk in their native language. But if you only have a couple, it's hard. When I was in Gainesville City, I have some that I could partner up and I'd let them talk in Spanish. And then work toward, incorporating more English and, going kind of back and forth between the two. Um, but getting kids to develop their language development, you got to give them time to talk,
Yes.
and get better at using the academic terms that you've modeled. Like right now, as that's doing long division right now, I really am trying to use divisor, dividend, and quotient more so that they'll use it comfortably, you know,
Okay.
and interchangeably, total dividend, the amount we're starting with, and kind of interchangeably using them so that they hear them both together and they make those connections and can start to comfortably use them correctly too. Correctly.
Yes, correctly is the main word there. Because I said something about a dividend last week, and they were like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Where have y'all been?"
Mm-hmm. No,
And then they were like, "Oh,
using
yeah."
it too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, the next one, she kinda question 11, she kinda allows them to come up with their own definitions or relate them to their own experiences
Mm-hmm.
before giving, like, a mathematical definition. I think that
Right.
just helps them be like, "Okay, I am part of this," like, it's not like an abstract, like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I need Google to answer this
Yeah,
question
like,
for
I have
me."
experience. I know what a remainder is
Yeah,
because of times that I've gotten change back when I'm, paying for something, or when I have leftovers after eating. But I like that she did all that access prior knowledge, get them to talk about their experiences with the word, and then saying, well, in math, that same concept of what you're talking about, you're a little bit extra. We call that a remainder.
yeah,
And then the kids are like, oh, I mean, if you just say, okay, guys, we're going to use this term and it means this, and let's write this definition in our notebook. I mean, I'm just trying to think back to how like learned math in school. It didn't connect to anything I could relate to and put my hands on. It was
yeah,
like, oh, a remainder is the extra. I didn't see how a remainder was how it really was a real thing. So then if you see it in a word problem, and like we talked about with the buses things, okay, if my remainder of kids, two full buses only fits this many of our students, and we need this many to come, what do I do with my extra number of students, the remainder? They still have to go to the field trip, so we would need one extra bus. No, we're not going to leave those kids back. um so I did like how she kind of leveraged the students prior knowledge, their way to understand it, and then say, oh well, in math this is what it means.
yes.
And I feel like I do that for the most part, but it was, I think, something nice to see and go, oh, okay, I should be a little bit more aware of it.
Yes.
Um,
That's why
here.
a lot of this stuff I'm like, "I think I do it,"
Yeah,
but I'm not, like,
but I can be better
100%
at it,
sure
right?
now that even, like, with our math discourse, I'm like now that when I'm having these conversations, I'm like, "Okay, what did we learn?
Mhm.
How can I pull those things?" Alright, last 2 questions-ish. If you videotaped your math lessons, what would you notice about your discourse? Um, it's definitely not where it should be,
Yeah.
but like I said earlier, I feel like I do call on ESOL students when I see that they have the right answer for them to gain that confidence, or if I
Mhm.
ask a question and their hand goes up and I have one that's, like, kinda high in math, and I'm like, "Alright, can you explain what you did?" Like,
Mhm.
I'm always calling on him
Mhm.
just for him to be like, "Okay, this is what I'm doing," and he's done well with that so far.
Mhm.
Um And then I would hope that I could see myself modeling on the board visuals and
Mhm.
trying to get it to connect with their personal experiences, not just to put a random word problem up there
Mhm.
that they can't relate to.
I think I had given you advice curious if you used it, how, kids will use like a lingo kind of term. I can't think of one right now. Well, yeah, I can think of one. So, my kids this year are actually pretty good about multiplying by units of like times 10 times 1,000, anything with zeros.
Yes.
So like 30 times 90, they're pretty quick to be like, well, I know 3 times 9. And so it has 2 zeros. So thus my answer has 2 zeros. But then they'll use the terminology like, oh, you just add a zero at the end. And I'm like, okay, can you make sure you explain to me what you're doing when you add a zero? And they're like, oh, well, I'm really multiplying by 10. So 10 has a zero. That's why my answer also has a zero, but that has 2 zeros. So I'm actually multiplying by 100. So it gets 2 zeros. But just interchangeably kind of using the kid term versus the mathematical term. And then if you use them, so you say like the word congruent. A lot of kids aren't going to use the word congruent, but they might say the same. It's the same. Then you're like, you're right, it is congruent. Or if they might start to use the word, and then you're like, yes, thank you. I do notice that those are the same. So like say they use the math term, then you can interchangeably use the kid term, and they'll start to use more the mathematical and intense term, like we're trying to talk about getting them to say dividend instead of total,
Yes.
And so the more you use their terms and kind of use them interchangeably, the more they get comfortable with hearing both and being able to see how they connect, like really what does the math term mean?
Yes. I have been doing that. I can't even think of it. Well, of course, with dividing. Um,
But like
but I feel like
product
I did
with
that last week.
answer,
Yeah.
kids will be like, oh, I think the answer is blah, blah. I'm like, you're right. The product is da, da, da,
Yes.
just so they're hearing it. And again, it's not having to just like this sum means addition answer, difference means,
Yes.
but they're just hearing it. And then that way, when it shows up in a word problem, they're taking milestones. They're like, they've had so much experience with it and they've used it themselves in their own discourse that, that they fully understand what the term means without it just being like a, vocab lesson in math. It's just used naturally and it develops over time.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, it's in my wallet. I'll call you in a few minutes when I'm done with this to see if you'll grab a couple more things.
Because I'm going to run to Ingles.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, it's in my wallet. If I've edited my math lessons, what I notice about my discourse, I definitely think it's gotten better over the years. When we took all those, it was required to do all those ELA modules last year to be certified, and the Georgia, all that, what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
How we had to all do that. It talked so much about putting the talk in the kids' hands more. There should be less teacher talking. Like if you look at percentages of how much you talk versus the kids do. So the power's in their hands and they're not just these passive learners. They're really involved. That's been a big part of it. I mean, I have the kids turn and talk a lot. Like I'm not letting a kid sit there and be spaced out thinking about something else. And you can only, like you talked about questioning strategies and calling on certain kids and whatnot. I'll definitely make sure the ones that I know are going to get disengaged easily are the ones getting called on. I will, kind of hold them accountable and say, okay, so-and-so, someone's going to get picked to come to the board to show how they did it. So be ready, so that you can't sit there and be passive learners. A lot of my kids, I mean, I feel like they've done really well with their turn in talks and engaging each other in conversation. Some groups do it better than others, but I've switched up what kids sit in each group. So the kids that are really good at leading kind of the discourse and staying on topic and really discussing their ideas, their thoughts, the things they see with correct vocabulary, I can kind of mix who they're with so that they can then model that for another group and kind of lead that group. Because some kids are just better at it than others, and some are still want to kind of get off topic and talk about other things. And when they have a turn and talk, I really do listen in the best I can. I kind of like walk by each group and kind of hear what I'm hearing, and then I like to make kids feel good and go, "I've heard an amazing conversation from such and such's group. They mentioned this. Can you guys repeat what you said?" And then I'll call in a different group and I've said, in your own words, can you kind of like reiterate what they said in your own words to show you understand it and see, did you see anything differently? And kids talk a lot in the room this year because of the kind of the way I get them to discuss it with each other. And then they're really comfortable with each other. I've always kind of had a class where kids, because I can be vulnerable and tell them, this is what I struggle with. Sometimes I'll make mistakes on the board just to see if they'll catch it. They're like, Miss Pollard, you wrote that wrong. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you guys are really paying attention. So act like I'm a dummy over here. But I also want to like show them like we all make mistakes. And sometimes I actually do make mistakes because I'm just my brain's fried and I'm like, oh, that minus that is not, that doesn't equal that. And so I do feel like discourse, if I videotape myself, I'd be like, oh, and I feel like that was a really powerful thing we did a lot in undergrad was videotaping yourself and looking back on it. And like you think something goes great and then you look back on it and you're like, that was actually not that great.
Yes.
I almost feel like it's something every teacher, experienced teacher should do every once in a while too, is to videotape their lesson and look back on it and see if it went as well as you think it did and like watch it from a third person perspective and what would you change? What would you know? I know we don't have it, we don't have time in the world. I mean, with all these, like we talked about conferences that our planning's gone. So unless we want to live at school in the afternoons, when are you supposed to go back and reflect on your practices and whatnot? In a deeper way. I feel like we reflect on ourselves. I mean, like I reflect on how my first periods lesson went and what changes I would make before I give it again to my next group. So my
Yes.
second group gets the better me every math lesson. I feel bad about that because I'm new to using these Georgia DOE units. And so when I teach it, I'm sure you've probably seen this too, since you teach the same lesson to your first period and second period, just reflecting on like what went well with that and what didn't. I mean, that's
Yes.
what you really can ask a teacher if they really care about what they do and want to improve their craft is just, one small change. If there was one small change between that lesson and how you would do it better next time, what would it be? And that's why I've kind of liked the Dr. Chang's things where you have to reflect on how the different lessons went and what you would do better for next time. Because I think that's what naturally we do as teachers is we kind of go, oh, I'm going to use that next time. And that went great. Or that did not, that was confusing. That was silly. I should have made that choice, right? That was the wrong questioning strategy or whatever it may be.
Yes. I've definitely seen that too.
And I guess we kind of talked about what changes you'd like to make to your discourse in the future. I mean, it's just trying to get better at it, trying to get kids more comfortable with
Yes.
being vulnerable, with saying what they think. Have you had a chance to look at that website, the Graham Fletcher 3-Act Tasks?
Not the 3-act task, but I have watched some of his stuff.
That would be, I mean, if that would be, honestly, I wish Dr. Chang, I mean, and maybe she has no experience with Graham Fletcher. I don't know. I feel like there was some of the stuff he does to get kids to talk about math, and 3-Act Tasks are a great way of that. The what do you notice, what do you wonder, and it's all like video based. I've had several kids do some of those this year, and everyone engages in the conversation because you can't really be wrong, and it eventually leads into a math concept, but it's really engaging and it gets kids to work on estimation strategies and try something out and then revise their work once they find out something more about it to make it more like accurate to what you're doing. And it's all put on there for you, the little worksheet that the kids need, which is where you take down your like, what do you notice, what do you wonder, what is your estimation? I just feel like there's some good stuff in that as well, and it leads a lot to improving the discourse in the kids.
Yeah.
Um,
We have done the Estimysteries by him,
okay.
and they like those. They're like, "Oh yeah, it could be this," and then
Yeah.
it changes. And
Yeah, the estimation things. I think just in general, this course has given me a lot of different things and tools that I'm like, okay, I can be a better math teacher in this way. Because I've always kind of known I like math, but the focus sometimes in previous years has been ELA, ELA, ELA. You like push these kids to know their phonics and be fluent and comprehension and vocabulary and all these things. And I haven't really taken the time till this year to be like, how can I be just better at as a math teacher, not having to do it all and me being able
yeah,
to really just get good at, I already know I was good at science. Like science is just one of those things that I naturally enjoy and I try to make it hands-on as much as possible. And so any of this extra time I have, I'm like, okay, let me find fun ways to make me better at math and between these math PLCs I've gone to, the Graham Fletcher things, and sitting down with the other fifth grade teachers within the district to talk about how we're going to be better math teachers this year. And then these conversations we've had, and then the different strategies she's had us try, I think can only go up from here. I just really hope they keep me in the position where I am in fifth grade doing fifth grade math so I can keep getting better at it because I love seeing, I mean, I'm going to be really excited to see how this group of kids do on milestones this year, because most of my kids were 1s and 2s in math.
Yes.
And I'm really hoping using these strategies and using the Georgia DOE work and all this discourse and everything that the kids, a lot of those 2s will be 3s. I'm really hoping, really hoping.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I'm like, okay, how are they going to do on the milestones?
Yeah, I take it so hard on myself too. Like, I feel like I've given my all,
Yes.
and then I look at the scores that I get back, and I'm like, man, that kid could have done better. What in the world? Was it me? Was it them? Like, what am I doing wrong? And all we can do is continue to reflect and try new things. Be open to. I love working with other people, other teachers and stuff, because like, have you tried this? Or, whether it's a cool online thing or, I feel like all teachers should continue to be in school. I know that's a lot of extra work to get assignments done and all those kind of things, but there's so much we learn that is like, man, that really helped me be a better teacher. And that's what we all want ultimately,
Yes.
is to make sure
And
what
there's things that I've learned in undergrad that I just have forgotten now that I'm like thrown in the fire and I
Uh-huh.
get to revisit those. I'm like, oh, like
Mhm.
kinesthetic learning. That was one of my favorite things during student teaching.
Mhm.
And I've just like kind of forgotten about it.
Mhm. Well, our job is so busy and
Yes.
already takes so much mental space to do and planning and prepping, and then to on top. That's why most teachers don't take the time to learn new things, is because they're already like, I'm already burnt out in a way. So many teachers get
Right.
burnt out so easily with so many things. I mean, think about it. Within our classroom, we're not just teachers, we're, collecting fundraising money, or where there's always like something going on in the building that you have to be doing on top of everything else. And so taking the time to just learn about new strategies and then try it in your class to see if it works. I mean, I think that's been great about this course.
Yes.
And I'm excited to keep trying it and keep learning in the future. And we'll have to keep in touch, especially if we
Yes.
both stay in 5th grade math and science for next year.
Yeah. And I hope I do. I
Yeah.
cannot learn another. I'm like, I just need a second time go around.
They do typically keep first-year teachers in the same grade.
Yeah.
That almost
If
seems
after
to
the
like change
second
it.
year,
Like,
if
why would
they're
you
like,
do that?
"Hey, we
Yeah.
need to change you," I'm like, "All right."
Why? Why would you do
I'm
that?
I'll be like, "Why?" But then I'm like, "Okay." But
Yeah. You just roll with the punches. But
yeah.
yeah, it definitely helps if you've, you know, done the same grade
Yes.
a couple of times. And then, I just lucked out the way it worked for me, that I did 3 years in 3rd grade, my first 3 years teaching. And then they moved me to 4th grade. I did 6 years in 4th grade. And then when I moved here to Lumpkin, they moved to 5th grade. So have been able to, and I'd be happy to go back down to 4th or 3rd. I would like to stay within those 3 that I have experience with, just because I think uh, uh, just that's the kind of age kids that I prefer, is the older kids.
Yeah.
Um, but it's kind of nice. So it'll be interesting to see with your career what you end up doing, since you started with 5th, if you'll move down or if you'll stay in 5th. A lot of
Yeah.
teachers don't want to teach 5th grade, so I feel like the ones that are in it, they keep, because they're like, oh, they can deal with the craziness of 5th grade. And like,
Yeah.
yep,
Which I'm like, "I don't know anything else, so I'm here. I'm here
yeah,
for it."
I'm here for it. This is just real life. Yeah, yep. Okay,
Mhm.
well, let's see. I'm the one recording, aren't I? Okay.
Yes.
Um, well, good luck with everything, and keep in touch with me.
Yes. Good luck. We'll probably have some stuff next semester we have to do together.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. All right.
Alright.
Have a
Bye.
good rest of your weekend. Bye.
You too.